Welcome back, everybody. Hey, check it out. I'm animated now, although my eyes still remain unblinking. I wrote some simple code in processing that listens to me speak and animates on the fly. Hopefully, this will be the new norm, but as it is, my code is a little janky because it doesn't record audio, so I have to record them separately and sync them up, and I have to green screen out the background. Also, my mouth moves with about the accuracy of a dubbed anime character. So yeah, hopefully it's a change that sticks around and improves as time goes on. Anyways, today we're going to do something slightly different. One of my old college pals, Joe Mandel, invited me onto his podcast, Keyboard Canvas. Keyboard Canvas is a podcast where Joe interviews fellow creatives, and there are 3 sections in every episode of the podcast. A discussion section with the guest, an art news section about what's going on in the art world, and an art history section where we learn about famous artists of the past. If you're an artist yourself, you might really get a kick out of the series, and I really recommend checking it out. Besides podcasting, Joe is an amazing painter, sculptor, and a fellow YouTuber. If you want to learn how to draw and or paint, definitely go check out his YouTube channel. He even painted this image of me, which is really amazing. There are links to Joe's art Instagram, YouTube channel, and podcast down below. Since the podcast we recorded is like 50 minutes long, I'm only going to share 3 snippets with you. The first part I'm going to share with you is my introduction, where I talk a little bit about the Down and Out Designer Show. The second part is a little challenge Joe issued me for the episode. And the third part is from the last art history section, which will contextualize some of my decisions for the end of this show. Anyways, sit back and relax as you listen to 2 old chums talking about art and stuff. I'll catch you on the flip.
Jacob is trying to start his own YouTube and social media presence. I have my YouTube and Instagram accounts, J Mandel Art. Jacob has the Down and Out Designer. So why don't you tell everybody a little bit about that and what you're trying to do with it?
Yeah, for sure. So Down and Out Designer is a semi-autobiographical show that I put on during COVID, during this whole lockdown, after graduation. And basically I was applying to hella jobs out there and most of the time not hearing back from any of them.
I was there for a very long time.
Yeah, especially, I don't know, graphic design has been kind of deemed as not necessary. What did they say?
Non-essential, I guess.
Non-essential, yes, thank you. Deemed as non-essential. So yeah, most of the time I was hearing bad news for people who were working in design jobs, and it was kind of not a very fruitful search. But I was sitting in my parents' house, I think as many people who graduated in 2020 did for a while.
Many people who graduated before 2020 either.
True. I mean, it's a good scapegoat. I can say it's because of 2020.
Yeah.
But I was sitting there watching tons and tons of YouTube, and I stumbled across a dude who is still playing Minecraft. After how many years has Minecraft been around? But I was watching him play this game, and people were watching him play it live and just donating tons of money. And I was like, this is insane. How do these people play video games live and just get tons and tons of donations? I was just shocking to me.
Streaming. It's crazy what people do on Twitch, right? I'm not really into the Twitch thing. I know of a guy, Ninja, I think is his name. He does the Fortnite game, and he's like a millionaire through streaming Fortnite.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of how it all started. My mind was blown. That was just people are making a living right now in 2020 just by appealing to kids on the internet. And so I was thinking about why do I stop watching content and start making content? And so I was like, well, I want to be a designer, and I feel a little bit, I don't know, maybe inadequate after getting so many rejections. And I thought, man, what if I made a show where I streamed myself, was the initial idea, making design work for random clients, and maybe hopefully one day cash in on that sweet streaming dono money. But as I kind of started working on the project, I had a lot of ideas. Like, what if I made it a little bit funny, like a little bit of a comedy, and I'll like play up this character who is me, looking for a job. But meanwhile, while I'm looking for a job, I will literally take any zany job I can find to. And the initial idea was to like, it's going to fund my next meal. So I'm going to charge my clients like the exact price for like a McDonald's Big Mac. And then at the end of
I
the
didn't know
episode,
that. That's pretty
yeah, I
funny.
mean, yeah, I still like the idea of like using it, like using my earnings to like get something physical, like get food for a night.
For sure. The starving artist, quite literally.
Exactly. But you know how the creative process works. Like you start making something and it changes along the way. I feel like I started my show just designing for myself, saying like, well, I have this new platform. I'm going to design for my platform and I'm going to record it. And it took me a lot longer than I thought. So I was like, I have like hours and hours and hours of footage to sift through. So I just gonna like string it together and make like a really scrappy video, make a YouTube channel, just finally do it. So I made my YouTube channel, started and put it up my design work. And I am going out of my way to like look for people who are looking for like random little jobs. And I have some exciting ones lined up. But I was really excited about this idea because I get to work with like some interesting people. I also get to learn about the software I'm using. There's so much I'm like learning basically on the job, like After Effects and how I can use that with Premiere and Illustrator and how all those work together.
But I do have a challenge for you for an episode, since I'm promoting the Down and Out Designer, for you to promote the podcast and my YouTube channel / Instagram. I would like for you to come up with maybe the cover art for this episode, like the little thumbnail, using somehow either doing some sort of graphic version or using the imagery of the painting that I did of you. I actually did a portrait of Jacob a couple months ago, back during the quarantine when we were both still in Ann Arbor. I was painting a lot of my friends. Jacob's a good friend of mine, so I figured I had to do a painting of him. So that is my challenge to you.
Oh boy, yeah, for sure. This is how it happens, folks. This is how it happens. This is how episodes happen. You never know. There's always one lurking around the corner. People always need something. Well, that's great, man. I'm excited for that.
I'm going to move us on to section 3, art history. So for art history today, we're going to talk a little bit about a Baroque Italian master painter, Michelangelo Caravaggio. Obviously, Michelangelo, the famous sculptor painter, came before him, so that's why we refer to him as Caravaggio. Typically in art history, for those of you who don't know, it's standard to refer to an artist as their first name. Most art historians don't call Da Vinci, they refer to him as Leonardo. That being said, do you know much about Caravaggio?
I don't know much about him at all. I think I can recall some of his paintings. If I'm not mistaken, they're like kind of dark.
Yes. In fact, like harsh lighting and very dark settings are kind of his calling. That's what he's pretty famous for. He's very well known for being kind of a bit of a bad boy. He was a lawbreaker. He was reckless. He was, a guy who would drink a lot and hit up the taverns and, pick fights with people, as well as just being one of the greatest technical painters of all time, and working with his ability to kind of, work and play with light in a very unique way that hadn't really been done before. Because if you look at a lot of Renaissance paintings, they're very bright and they're, often, very colorful, and Caravaggio's paintings are so heavy in contrast, with bright highlights, with extreme lighting, with very dark contrasting settings in the background. But what we're going to really focus on today is the end of his life, and kind of the crazy story about how he ended up passing away. and the theories art historians have surrounding it. So throughout his life as a painter, he moved around a lot. He made lots of friends and enemies. In the Vatican, he befriended some powerful cardinals. Also, he was very focused on trying to actually eventually be a Knight of Malta. The Knights of Malta were a very powerful organization, and he wanted to be a member. Earlier in his life, when he was, picking fights with people, he actually would get arrested or charged for carrying a sword without a permit, all sorts of crazy stuff. And that kind of ties into the end of his life. So while he was having all of these crazy exploits, he was still turning out these crazy, amazing paintings. And he was breaking ground with how painting and lighting and composition existed and how subjects were depicted within paintings. And he got into some sort of fight and had to go on the run. And while he was on the run, he was managing to do paintings. One very famously, David with the Head of Goliath, which was done between 1609 and 1610. So he was on the run for a good while. And while he was on the run, word got out that he was either very disfigured or he was dead, for being a ruffian. And word got to the cardinal that he was friends with, and he was actually able to get a pardon if he'd brought him work. And Caravaggio was on his way to bring the paintings that he did on the run as his trade for the pardoning. And he died after allegedly missing the boat that would have taken him there. And he had to try and run in the wilderness to get there. There's a lot of theories about his death. Some people think he was tracked down by the Knights of Malta. Some people think he had a sexually transmitted disease. Some people think he caught malaria. People think he may have been wounded and he wasn't killed directly by a fight, but more as an after effect through infection. But yeah, he was kind of this bad boy who did some intense and crazy art that is shown all around the world. I mean, there are Caravaggios in the Met. I'm sure there are some in the Louvre. I saw a few in Italy. I mean, it's crazy. This guy was on the run, yet he was still able to produce such high quality masterpieces.
Man, this is hilarious because, and I'm so glad you picked to this for this episode to teach me about, because I've been really into like true crime as of late.
Oh yeah.
And like, it's like, this is so and so and he did this crazy stuff and then he ended up killing 7 people before, dying in a firefight with the law or whatever. It's like some crazy stuff, like,
yeah.
And I feel like I didn't know anything about Caravaggio or his life, or for that matter his death, and it just seems so much like this dude is like an OG crazy person. Like this is kind of like a scandalous story in the same way that like a lot of these true crime podcasts are. I mean, I was just browsing through images of some of his paintings, and yeah, he has like images of like guy like you said, David with the head of Goliath.
And what's interesting actually about that one too is he depicts himself as the head of Goliath, showing that he feels like he's a villain and he needs to repent. And that's part of like, trying to show that he's ready to turn a new leaf in his pardoning.
All right, back to the Down and Out Designer Show. Remember the challenge I was given? Make a cover for the episode of the podcast using the painting Joe made of me? Yes, this one that I showed earlier in the video. We're going to speedrun this challenge because this episode is already long enough. All right, let's get cracking. Here we are, back at it again in our overpriced software. So here's what I'm thinking. We're going to have a bit of fun with this challenge. We talked about the painting, David with the head of Goliath, so we're going to replace David's head with my head. Let's go ahead and remove the background here. We need to make a couple adjustments to the painting. Sorry, Joe. Looks really good, but it doesn't look exactly like me. There we go. Now let's plop this on David's head. Perfect. All right, we add the name of the podcast and the Down and Out Designer logo here, and boom, a masterpiece. They say don't judge a book or podcast by its cover, but if I saw this, I wouldn't be able to resist listening. Okay, but that's not all. Remember, we're extra here on the Down and Out Designer Show. I really like Keyboard Canvas's logo, but I think it could use a makeover since it's a bit pixelated. Joe didn't ask for this. We're just gonna make it real quick and send it his way. My process here is pretty simple, so we're gonna speed run this one too. Alright, so I'm making a uniform key shape and put a letter inside of it. I personally think that the letters are too small on the current logo. It's a little hard to read at a distance, especially at this resolution, so we'll make it bigger. Now we just duplicate that for all of our letters. Let's center this and pay attention to the leading or the space in between the lines here. I also got rid of these black lines here because it took too much attention away from the letter forms. And here it is. Hopefully Joe will like it. And who knows, maybe it'll be the official logo of Keyboard Canvas Season 3. If not, I won't be offended. Alright pals, that's it for the episode. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon. Peace.